Do you know why the tortoise has a cracked shell? Well, I'll tell you why. Long ago, when the world was young and the animals still spoke the same language, Tortoise was the proudest creature in the land. His shell was smooth and golden, polished like the finest wood under the sun. He loved to boast about it, walking slowly through the animal kingdom so that everyone could admire him. "Look at me," he would say, "not a single scratch, not a single dent, my shell is the most beautiful of all." The other animals grew tired of his arrogance. Wise old elephant, who had seen many seasons, shook his head. "Pride will be your downfall. Tortoise," he warned, "a beautiful shell is nothing if the heart inside it is not humble." But Tortoise only laughed. "You're just jealous. Elephant, you have no shell at all." One day a great announcement spread through the land. The Sky King, ruler of the heavens, was hosting a grand feast. It was said to be the most magnificent gathering ever, with food that never ran out and music that could make even the trees dance. Only the most respected animals were invited. Birds, with their wings, were called to fly up at sunrise. The larger animals, like lion and elephant, were to use the great cloud bridge that would appear over the highest mountain. But Tortoise, who was neither strong nor could fly, was not invited. This did not sit well with him. "I cannot miss the feast," he thought. "There must be a way." He watched as the birds sharpened their beaks and preened their feathers in excitement. Then, a sly idea slithered into his mind. That evening, he approached the birds with a smooth voice. "My dear winged friends," he said, bowing so low that his golden shell gleamed in the moonlight, "surely you would not let your old companion miss the greatest feast of all time?" The birds looked at each other. Some hesitated. They knew Tortoise was clever, but they also knew he could be greedy. "But how can you come?" asked Parrot. "You have no wings." Tortoise smiled. "Ah, but if each of you gives me a single feather, I can make myself wings." The birds murmured among themselves. Some thought it was a bad idea, but others, flattered by his sweet words, plucked a feather each and gave it to him. Tortoise carefully tied them together, creating two large wings. When he flapped them, he lifted off the ground. "Look at me," he shouted, "I am flying." So, with great excitement, he soared into the sky, following the birds toward the feast. As they reached the Sky Kingdom, Tortoise had another idea. "Friends," he said smoothly, "since we are all one family now, let us use one name. And because I am the one who brought us together, let us all be called Tortoise Asterisk." The birds, though confused, agreed. After all, it was just a name. At the entrance of the Sky King's palace, a great banquet table stretched as far as the eye could see. Platters of steaming roasted yams, honey-glazed fruits, and golden grains sparkled under the light of the sun. But before anyone could eat, the Sky King's chief steward called out, "The feast is ready, but first, let us serve our honored guest Tortoise." Tortoise grinned because of his trick. All the food was now being served in his name. He hurried forward, taking the biggest portions of everything, stuffing his mouth while the birds watched in shock. "You tricked us," screeched Hawk. "You took all the best food," cried Sparrow. Tortoise only chuckled, wiping his mouth. "Well, my friends, it is not my fault that the Sky King honors me so greatly." The birds were furious, but they could do nothing at least. Not yet. They waited until the feast was over. Then, one by one, they took back their feathers. Tortoise, full and satisfied, stretched his arms only to realize that his wings were gone. The cloud bridge had already vanished. The only way down was through the open sky. He looked at the birds in horror. "Friends and my brothers, surely you won't leave me here." But the birds only glared at him. "Find your own way down, Tortoise." And with that, they flew away, leaving him stranded in the sky. Tortoise hung in the sky, his smooth, golden shell gleaming under the sun. He looked down at the vast earth below, his heart pounding. The birds had taken back their feathers, and there was no way for him to fly. He called after them, "My dear friends, come back, we can share the feast. I will give you all my food." But the birds only laughed. "You were greedy. Tortoise, now, find your own way down." And with that, they flapped their wings and disappeared into the clouds, leaving him stranded in the Sky Kingdom. Tortoise gulped. He had tricked the birds and taken all the food, but now he had been outwitted. There was no way down except to fall. He looked below and saw the land stretching endlessly. But then, his sharp eyes spotted something, a patch of soft earth near his home. If he aimed just right, he might land there and survive. He took a deep breath, squeezed his eyes shut, and let go. Down, down he fell, the wind roaring past his ears. His shell, once the pride of the animal kingdom, gleamed as he tumbled through the sky. But as he neared the ground, he realized something terrible. The soft turf he had seen, it wasn't turf at all, it was a pile of sun-dried mud. Quiet. Tortoise crashed hard. The impact sent a loud crack through the air. His beautiful golden shell shattered into pieces, breaking apart like a clay pot. For a long moment, he lay there, too stunned to move. Pain shot through his body. He groaned and tried to sit up. But when he looked down at himself, his heart sank. His shell was no longer smooth and perfect. It was cracked, rough, and uneven. Slowly, he crawled back to his home, ashamed and broken. The other animals came out to see what had happened. When they saw his shattered shell, they gasped, "Tortoise, what happened to your shell?" He bowed his head, too embarrassed to speak. But Old Wise Elephant, who had once warned him, nodded knowingly. "You see now, Tortoise? Pride and greed have their consequences." From that day on, Tortoise never boasted again. He moved more slowly than before, careful with every step, and though his shell remained cracked and rough, he learned the most important lesson of all. It is not beauty that makes one great, but wisdom and humility. And that, my friends, is why the tortoise has a cracked shell.